out on YouTube, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Great. All right, I'm going to hand it right over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm totally nervous.
Oh,
I've been like nervous this whole time. So maybe I'll just cry first in front of everybody. Cry some more a little later, but I think it's more appreciation seeing all of you here. And appreciation for this project. Valerie Salas working with Mary Bradshaw, making this thing happen, bringing the 5 artists together, part of To Talk with Others. For me, it was a first to have anything in a gallery. This was a first for me. It's also creating something as a community. It was a first for me. Something that's a very profound experience in the last sort of 5 months. And I think a lot of that sort of energy is still inside of me from the experience, but also because this period of, I've been sort of part of a period of reflection now since the show opened December 6th. And sort of seeing the moose here, these other pieces here, and then continuing to work with the people that I've been working with on this project. It just seems to be a lot of energy around it still. Positive energy in my family. We respond to positive things with tears. So makes things kind of awkward, but it's just the way it is. Where to start? I guess it's probably best to start with the moose because this is for the story of the 4 pieces. This one here, back here on the wall as well. It begins basically with the moose. He's a hot pink, life-size paper mache gold moose made out of the Umbrella Final Agreement, which is the framework that guides modern treaty making here in the Yukon. The idea for this project, I've been racking my brain to remember when this came into my mind and how, where it even came from. I do remember having a chat with you, Siku, and I think maybe my sister Caitlin and my partner Michael at some point just saying out loud, I think I want to name the life-size hot pink paper mache moments out of the USA. And just gauging people's response. It was mostly positive and sort of resounding, you should do it. So the only way that it actually happened was because a community of people came together to make it happen. I had a lot of help from a woman down south of Vancouver named Taryn who has done this kind of sculpture work before, and she mentored me over phone and email about where to even start. Because where do you start when you want to make a life-size bull moose? Just if people want to know what's actually under here, there's a 2D patterned garden statue that you can buy from a company that we bought. That's the basis of this piece. They get the instructions for the plywood, you cut it out yourself, you paint it white, you stick it on your front lawn and put some Christmas lights on it, and it's like, that's a thing you can buy. So what we did that in addition to 3D-ifying it. So underneath we have like a ribbing of styrofoam, a chicken wire, duct tape, all these like materials that my friend Taryn had said, this is what I would do, and this is how, these are the materials I suggest, so we went for it. So it's mostly styrofoam under there, filling it out. And then a number of layers of just straight up paper with the flour water solution, your straight up paper mache pinata approach. And then the final outer layer is the Umbrella Final Agreement printed with the Xerox machine on hot pink paper, and then paper mache on as well. So then comes the meaning part. right? Why this combination of things? Why pink? Why the UFA? Why arrows? Why there? Why gold rack? Why those eyes? These are lots of things that over time, definitely the meaning making sort of happened in the actual making of it. So why pink? That's the question I get asked the most. And originally, in my mind, it was I wanted it to be unavoidable, which I think maybe it is. A number of reflections on the pink, though, is someone said, oh, like the pink elephant in the room. So the thing that nobody's talking about, but is there. And that I've played with and thought about that a lot. Because when we think about the complexities of Indigenous politics here in the Yukon, a lot of things get said and unsaid, or heard and silenced. And a number of elements of this particular piece are items that are themes or topics that I think have been silenced. So to link them with a hot pink life-size paper mache bull moose, I think kind of forces us to maybe talk about some of these things that don't really get talked about. I guess I should go with the one that's the most obvious, and for me that I wanted to sort of put on the table right from the get-go, and that is the cede, release, and surrender clause, which is included in the Umbrella Final Agreement. So the Umbrella Final Agreement was negotiated throughout the 70s and 80s and finalized in the early 90s, and it becomes this overall framework with a number of clauses that are agreed upon by all the parties involved. So CYI at the time representing the Council for Yukon Indians, representing Yukon First Nations, the territorial government, and the federal government. They agreed upon all the sort of provisions that would be like an umbrella, obviously. The umbrella part makes sense because it would be applied to all the nations in the Yukon. Then the individual nations using that framework negotiate their individual land claim, their individual self-government agreement, but using those same agreed upon provisions, and then they get to add their special provisions. On page 15 of the Umbrella Final Agreement, in the second section, is this thing called the cede, release, and surrender clause, a certainty, also referred to as certainty. If you understand the federal government's sort of desires heading into a modern treaty process, a land claims process, is they're seeking this thing called certainty. Aboriginal title at the time considered very ambiguous. No one's really defined or named exactly what this means. If it hasn't been extinguished or addressed through a historical treaty or through a court case, then it's left in this realm as a very ambiguous, sort of complicated realm. Most of the BC is still there, and a number of the few nations here in the Yukon still, because they have not signed on to this, do not heart. There's still this idea of it not being certain land, Aboriginal rights and title in those parts of the territory. So the federal government is seeking certainty about Aboriginal rights and title. So in order to sort of create a blank slate to renegotiate together what Aboriginal rights and title are going to be in, under these modern treaties, you have to sort of eliminate Aboriginal rights and title altogether. It's referred to as extinguishment, surrender, or it gets ceded. What I'd like to do, a number of you actually have the certainty clause in your hand. On the moose, it's the only part of the Umbrella Final Agreement that is with no real intention behind it, behind its placement, except for the certainty clause. So let's read it together, okay? It's kind of awkward. We're going to skip the number part, like reading the section, blah, 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 and then where you say all the numbers. But we'll just go, and my hope, let's just see how it goes. I've never done this before, so if it's weird, let's pretend it didn't happen. Okay, so I'll start, and then you guys can just chime in. I'll read the first section, so if you want to find out where this is, you can find it. So it's section 2.5.0 called Certainty. In consideration of the promises, terms, conditions, and provisos in a Yukon First Nations final agreement, subject to 5.14.0. It's together. That Yukon First Nations and all persons eligible to be Yukon Indian people it represents, as of the effective date of that Yukon First Nations final agreement, see, release, and surrender to Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada all their Aboriginal claims, rights, titles, and interests to non-settlement land and all other land and water, including mines and minerals, within the sovereignty or jurisdiction of Canada, except the Northwest Territories, British Columbia, and settlement land. The mines and minerals within all settlement land, and fee simple settlement land. That Yukon First Nations and all persons eligible to be Yukon Indian people it represents, as of the effective date of that Yukon First Nations final agreement, see, release, and surrender to Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada all their Aboriginal claims, rights, titles, and interests in and to Category A and Category B settlement land and waters therein, to the extent that those claims, rights, titles, and interests are inconsistent or in conflict with any provisions of settlement agreement. That Yukon First Nations and all persons eligible to be Yukon Indian people it represents, as of the effective date of that Yukon First Nations final agreement, see, release, and surrender to Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada any claims, rights, or causes of action which they may have ever had, may now have, or may have hereafter, under or arising out of Treaty 11, and neither that Yukon First Nation nor any person eligible to be a Yukon Indian person it represents, their heirs, descendants, and successors, shall have the effective date of that Yukon First Nations final agreement assert any cause of action, action for declaration, claim or demand of whatever kind or nature, which they never had, now have, or may hereafter have against Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada, the government of any territory or province or any person based on any other claim, right, title, or interest ceded, released, or surrendered pursuant to these other clauses. Any Aboriginal claim, right, title, or interest in and to settlement land lost or surrendered in the past, present, or future, or any claim, right, or cause of action described in the other section. Okay, if this were my class, I would say to you, what did you hear? But for the sake of time, I'm going to tell you what you heard. Basically, you hear a cede, release, and surrender of all our Aboriginal titles and rights to Her Majesty the Queen, representing Canada, but also the fact that our heirs, anybody who's any signer of that agreement, and anyone forever after cannot take the state or the court, take this to courts or into the past. So it's a forever document. The state, in these cases, modern treaties, land claims are often seen by the state as contractual and as a final. They're called final agreements. It's more and more research is revealing the fact that First Nations see these as relationships, a commitment to a long-standing relationship. So we see that they're even viewed differently. But the fact that the cede, release, and surrender clause exists on page 15 of a 309-page document tells me that the state knew exactly what it was going for and seeking in this process. So this raises a major question for me, and that is, can we be Indigenous in the ways that our ancestors would recognize if we only have rights and title to a fraction of our territory? Okay? Which then raises questions about the kind of futures that the UFA sort of sets up for us. Do we want to prioritize that kind of this way of being, these kinds of truths, or do we need to prioritize things that are more in line with our ancestral values, our own understandings of our land and how it is that we are to be here and the responsibilities that we have being of this place. So this was very scary for me to put out in some ways, and I think making it a pink moose invites people in, right? It's friendly, it's you want to touch it and you can, and it gets you here, right? And then I feel a huge responsibility, especially to the my own people and the coming generations, that we need to fully understand what that certainty clause means and decide now if this is actually, if that's what we want. And that often gets heard as a critique of our leaders and our people who started in on those negotiations for us and did that work for us, with us in mind, and sacrificed so much in their time and effort to get a modern treaty here, to protect at least a portion of what is ours, and to at least have some of our rights acknowledged and jurisdiction and powers returned back to us, right? These are huge accomplishments and ones that shouldn't be overlooked. And I don't see this as an instead of. I see this as an alongside. We can be. I am grateful. I do acknowledge and I'm proud of the work of our people, and I have hard questions. I realize, yeah, so then why the arrows? Why the gold? There's the minutes. I haven't even spoken about the minutes. So like the whole point of like what it is that we're responding to. Trudeau coming in the 1970s, 1977, met with leadership at the time. There's this emergent land claim process that the federal government's trying to figure out. And then we have the Mackenzie Pipeline, which at the time was approved. Trudeau's coming to sort of put the feelers out for sort of joint venture and a joint pipeline, American pipeline that would come through the Yukon, get a sense of how people might respond to that. There's definitely, they're not interested. But the themes that sort of come out of this conversation are things that are very much still present today. So the place of resource extraction, this relationship to land as a resource, this need from the various governments to want to access this land in order to sort of be able to make these kinds of decisions to take on economic development projects like that with certainty, right? So you don't have to worry about blockades or the natives being restless or anything like that, because there's certainty here. And you see this in how the Yukon gets talked about, First Nations people at the tables, we work together, these sorts of things. It's because of this process, of the land claims process. So you see these themes happening throughout the minutes, and I realize that these are all still happening very much right now. So the horns are gold because I wanted to capture the minerals and the materials in the ground that people want. This is a thing of value. The rock is something of value. People will kill this being for that alone. Okay, so it's an interesting metaphor. The arrows going into the seed release and surrender clause. I didn't do that. No, I did actually. So this was really funny because I'm not a hunter. I don't know how to hunt. Various things have prevented that traditional knowledge being extended to me. I researched, I Googled, where's the kill zone on a moose? And I was under the impression it was in this area, in that area. And a young man came in when we were making the moose, putting it together over at one of the buildings at the college. And he's a hunter, and he's asking lots of questions. And I said, oh yeah, and these 3 holes here, I'm going to put arrows there in the kill zone. And he goes, that's not the kill zone. That's embarrassing. He goes, if you want to kill the animal, you want to aim lungs, or get it right into the diaphragm, or you want to go a little bit more forward and go for the heart. Right there, you're just sort of injuring him. And I was like, holy, yes, isn't that interesting? Okay, so perspective-wise, there could be certain depth with this seed release and surrender clause. You could very much see it as the end of a certain way of being in this world that can no longer exist because we do not have access to our land in the ways that we need to. Or there's hope. If this guy is just injured and can deal with this in some way, then what is the potential there? What could happen? Another hard question, right? I don't have the answer for that, but if we think about it together, well, what are the possibilities? Yeah. Okay, the other major part of this, of why paper, I think is really exciting to think about. I was reflecting a lot on the fact that these minutes were like this big, like whack of paper, and that my various experiences that I've had working with different First Nations is always this abundance of paper that's at these meetings. Like these huge binders. We got like seed cans full of like our archives. There's paper everywhere. And I've noticed a lot that we are reliant on it. It's doing all our remembering for us when it comes to like our laws, our new rules and regulations now. The paper is defining how it is that we interact with each other. Paper is defining how it is that we interact with our land, what we can do on the land. We always are now turning to paper. Prior to this, we were actually turning to the land. The land was part of those kinds of decisions. It held our laws, it guided our laws, it told us how we move around and how we be here. It told us how we be together. But now it's paper. So I was thinking, okay, well, if this moose is made of paper, then its hide would also be made of paper, which then brought up the idea of making the stretched hide. The background here are the land claims maps, and you heard in the seed release and surrender clause a few lines about where sort of Indigenous or First Nations jurisdiction is applied and where it's not, and where rights remain and where they don't. This is shown to you in a different kind of way through the land claims maps. So you'll see that, I believe, I'll just do a quick reference check here. Oh yeah, category A is the red, and category B is the purple. Category A means that we have rights to the surface and the subsurface. Those remain, and we have aboriginal title to the surface. It remains on the surface of both. But category B, the state holds the mineral rights. Okay? Those maps that you often see with the traditional territory outline, that's not where we have full jurisdiction. Okay, this is where people who have signed have their jurisdiction. We are at the table, a very hard battle to get a seat at that table for decisions that are made everywhere else. Okay? We can put forward recommendations to these parts. Those recommendations go to the territory to have the final decision. What I wanted to do here was, when you're scraping out real moose hide, at this stage in the moose hide tanning process, you're taking off the fur and all the, I think it's the epidermis, all the fleshy stuff. And so you see they're really, they can be this big. I've seen photos of tanners now like propped up on these things. I haven't actually done this myself, but I would guess that it's really hard work. What we did is we put, with the help of my sister and a couple of friends, and a young artist from Conlon Dunn, is we made this collaged image of the land on the top together. We had to do this all in one day because this blue stuff dries fast, and it just had to happen. It took us 9 hours. And what I wanted to do here is sort of using the scraper and this idea of tanning the hide and preparing it for use, is imagine this way of being as being scraped off, literally scraped off, and what we have left is this way of being. The thing with tanning hide is like this is hard, but this is also intentional. So then it raises some really hard questions about, do we want to be doing that? This is a physical effort. We do this with our bodies. Do we want to? Do we want to keep doing this? One of the things, a friend of mine who helps, Sarah, she helps with the face. She did the face, an incredible artist who was alongside us for the whole journey. She was doing the face while we did everything else, which shows you how much time and effort has gone into both of those things. But she said, oh, you know what? You should put some salmon in that water. And I was like, that's an awesome idea. So we did. And then just reflecting quite a bit on the state of our salmon now, it became really apparent that maybe this is the beginning. The salmon are going. We've scraped those off. The water could be next. And we're just scraping and scraping and scraping. The copper frame instead of like a tree frame, again bringing in the place of resource extraction here in the north, getting us looking at how this sort of thing is actually propping up and holding this. So yeah, more sort of hard questions about what's going on here. Again, the scraper made out of gold. No subtleties here. This is definitely raised. I was trying to process these incremental ways of being with the land and seeing and understanding the land. And that one is as resource and other is as relation, as creation, as us, as a part of us. Just gonna check the time here because. So we've got a moose made out of paper, a hide made out of paper, and when you tan a hide, you make things out of it. Things like mucklucks, moccasins, clothing, things that allow us to do things in the ways that we need to do them. Things that allow us to be out on the land, comfortable, warm. We're able to hunt. We're able to be together in ways because we're supported by material items that are also of the land, but then also are so right for here, right? So that raised this question about if the moose is made out of paper and the hide's made out of paper, will paper actually, a paper item like moccasins or mucklucks, will it actually allow us to do the things that we need to do? So I have at home half-made mucklucks out of paper, which I wasn't able to finish in time for this. But it was really coming from this place of could we walk out onto the land and hunt with paper mucklucks? Would those things keep us warm and allow us to do what we need to do? And the obvious question is no. I was able to make a baby belt out of paper with this idea, and then I shared at the artist talk that for me, this was the most personal piece, and a piece that I did on my own. The others were all collective projects. And this one was definitely one reflecting on a very personal experience. I wanted to read you something. We do have time. I know that reading changes things, but I haven't memorized this yet. This is a story of intention. This is a story about. I'm gonna cry again. This is also why I'm reading it so I don't cry, but see, it's actually not working, so I might cry. This is a story about motherhood. This is a story of ancestral desire. This is a story of overcoming disconnection. This is a story about the intimacies of resurgence, micro movements, micro moments, a multiplicity of fractions struggling to form some kind of recognizable whole. I'm sitting here trying to remember everything about that morning out at Little Salmon Lake. I've recalled the story a number of times to friends and family. I have told it in a number of different ways. Sometimes I share all the details, all the fears and anxieties. Other times I gloss over those parts, hide it. I'm just not sure my listener will understand, and I don't want to have to explain. The river. I'm in the boat with my family. The river water is clear. The kind of clear that is only understood when seen, not when written about. What words can I use to describe the water's silky embrace around my hands as I reach out to it from the boat? From where I sit at the bow, I can see these bright green reeds dancing in the current as we float by. The reeds are hypnotic in their vibrancy, swirling. They so easily give in to the movement of the water. Seeing the river up close, intimately, makes me think about resurgence differently. Jeff Corntassel and Sarah Hunt have written about the everydayness of resurgence. But out here, I see this is more than the everyday. The river is showing us that here, resurgence is every pulsing moment, every stillness, every sway, every current, every rustle. This is our land creating and recreating itself right in front of our eyes. Today, from the bow of my cousin's boat, I am lucky to be able to witness it. I have to remind myself that this recreation is happening even when I'm not physically here to humbly observe. This seems obvious, but it's such a powerful reminder to myself when I'm feeling disconnected, city-bound and far away. The reeds are swaying, the whiskey jacks are darting from tree to tree, the trout are resting in eddies, and the river water, so clear, is ever flowing along its journey to the ocean. It's my son's first birthday. We have organized a big family and friend gathering at Little Salmon Lake, which is part of our people's traditional territories. Since pregnancy, I knew I wanted to do an afterbirth ceremony for Luca. I just did not know what it was going to look like. I do not know our ancestral practices when it comes to afterbirth. I do not know our ancestral practice when it comes to a lot of things. I had never heard of any of the women in my family speak about afterbirth. Even a couple of my closer cousins who had babies before me did not speak of any afterbirth ceremony. Although one mentioned she did take the placenta from the hospital, it's still in her freezer. I figured that if we were to do an afterbirth ceremony, I would have to ask around my family about what we do. I finally get the courage to call up an elder who gave me her number at a community gathering a while back. Her name is Gertie. She is very well known here. She is one of the few fluent Northern Shoshone language speakers remaining in our community. She started the Yukon Arts Centre. She also grew up in the same village as my grandfather. Since returning to the Yukon, I've been wanting to meet with her. She published a collection of stories in the 70s about her life at Big Salmon Village. Her book connected me to home when I was far, far away. I call her up and arrange a time to visit. I get up early, I pack up Luca, I stop at the grocery store for some snacks to bring over. I'm worried about being late. I drive to where I think she lives, call her to confirm her address, realize I'm at the wrong place, and drive back across town in the other direction. I'm nervous. I do not know what I'm going to say to her. I'm worried Luca is going to cry or be a nuisance and we'll have to leave early because of him or something like that. I arrive at her little house. Her driveway is icy. I walk slowly as I carry Luca to her door. I knock and I hear her voice on the other side. "Come in," she yells from the couch. I open the door and her living room and kitchen are sparsely decorated. There is just a clock on the living room wall. She has a huge TV at the center of the room and one couch across from it. I put the bag of oranges and the lemon loaf I bought for her on the kitchen table, unpack Luca and sit on the floor. "So," she says, "what do you want?" I'm caught off guard by the question. What do I want? I want to know what life was like at Big Salmon, I say, somewhat hesitantly. I want to know what it feels like to be comfortable on the land and the water, I think, but do not say. I want to know what women did with the placenta after birth. They would hang it in a tree, she tells me, at the place where the baby was born. My baby was born in a hospital, I think to myself, but I had imagined myself placing the placenta in the river at the place where we saw a flash of red from a salmon breaking through the surface of the water, just after my cousin shared a story of my dad. I recall wanting to ask one of my aunties the same question. What did women do with the placenta after birth? But I was hesitant. I felt guilty for not already knowing. And by asking, I was going to reveal this to my auntie that I don't know. I also felt a bit awkward about imposing my wants on her. I did not know how she was going to react. My question seemed intimate, personal, and I had never really spoken about intimate or personal things with my auntie. I asked and also shared what I had heard from Gertie. She said she had heard that too. She said she would ask elders for me, and we didn't talk about it anymore after that. One of my older, distant cousins knows a lot about Northern Shoshone cultural practices and language. We stopped at her house this past summer, and I asked her what she knew about our afterbirth practices. She said we would hang the placenta in a tree at the birthplace, and added that it was understood that whatever animal ate the placenta would be connected to the baby. We might never know what animal ate the placenta, but we believed that the baby would know, and they would be guided by and in a relationship with this animal throughout their life. Just a few weeks before Luca's first birthday, one of my other aunties stopped by my house for a visit. As she was leaving, I confirmed with her that she was still coming to Little Salmon for Luca's party, and I mentioned that we'd be doing an afterbirth ceremony. I told her I wanted to hang the placenta in a tree near the spot that I saw that salmon. She turned and asked, "Did we even do that?" I could not tell if she was questioning me or questioning the practice. Either way, for a moment, I doubt what I have learned. I doubt what I'm about to do. I doubt if I'm doing the right thing by moving forward with something that I do not know much about. Did we even do that? It's the morning after Luca's birthday party. We were at Little Salmon Lake. Most of my friends left the campground yesterday. It's mostly family left. I realize that if I want to make this afterbirth ceremony happen, it has to happen this morning. There's already talk amongst the family of packing up early and beginning the long drive home. I go to one of my auntie's campers first. I can hear her grandkids chatting inside, so I know at least a few people are awake in there. I knock on the door and she answers. "Auntie," I say, "we're going to take Luca's placenta down the river in a bit. I was wondering if you could come and send us off in a good way." "Oh," she said, somewhat surprised. "Yes, I can do that." I walk a couple campsites over to where my other auntie's camper is parked. Her husband is sitting outside by the fire. I ask if she's awake. She says, yes, she's inside making bacon. I knock on the door, open it myself, and go inside. I'm so nervous. I go to ask her to join us, but I start to cry. She looks at me and waits. Finally, I say, "We're going to take Luca's placenta out to the river. I was hoping you would come join us as we gather on shore." She says yes. I'm not entirely sure, but it looked as if she had tears in her eyes too. My aunties, residential school survivors. My aunties, strong, stern, private women. I haven't been away for 30 years. We are connected by blood and family values that instruct us to care for your own. We were all just getting to know each other. My dad, their brother, passed away in 1988. My dad, my aunties, and my mom have a past I know little about, only that it's tainted by too much alcohol. And here I am, newly back in the Yukon after spending most of my life away. We are all learning how to be with one another again. We stand together on the shore of the lake. The morning air is cool, the sun is still low, the sky is clear and bright. I'm standing in front of everyone. I've asked everyone to gather here for a reason I cannot articulate just now. The words are stuck in my throat, tears flow freely. I'm anxious and a little embarrassed that I'm showing this much emotion. Finally, I say, I'm crying because I do not know what I'm doing. I do not know what I'm doing. But I'm going to try this anyway. Because we have to. Because deep down inside, I know what I'm doing. We know what we're doing. I tell you how it's been a hard first year as a mother. Harder than anything I've ever imagined. I struggled. My partner and I struggled. And I felt incredibly alone for a lot of the first year. Motherhood is hard for so many reasons, many I did not not even anticipate. I did not know that some of these experiences or feelings I had were even possible until they were happening. I can remember a few times in the middle of the ups and downs thinking to myself, nobody told me about this. This being, well, everything. Nothing was familiar. I did not recognize my body. I did not recognize myself, sleep deprived, depressed, and struggling to figure out how to make things better. Sometimes I did not recognize my partner. Where was the joy? Where was the love? Where was the deep appreciation for each other in this little tiny life we brought into this world together, intentionally? I share a story about an experience I had at Little Salmon River a couple years ago. I was with 3 of my older cousins. We went out one evening to look for a moose. We came to the spot where this creek connected with the river. My eldest cousin in the boat, who grew up with my dad, pointed to the shore and said, "I used to fish here with your dad." Just as he said that, a king salmon broke through the surface of the water, and we all saw this flash of its red body. I tell my family that I learned we put the placenta in the tree at the birthplace, but part of me wants to put it in the water at that spot. I look at my auntie and I say, maybe you could help me decide. When she speaks, she starts by saying she's not the oldest in the family, but she's the oldest here today, so it's okay that she speaks on behalf of the family. She tells me she is proud of me and of what we are doing. She says our people would place the placenta in a tree, but if I wanted to put it in the river, I could put it in the river. As I sit here writing this, I can see an image from that day so clearly in my mind. We're on the boat, driving away from shore. There's my family standing on the shoreline, the water at their feet, the trees at their backs. They're waving, we wave back. We are all witnessing. We step out of the boat. Michael is holding Luca. I'm holding the placenta. It's double wrapped in plastic baggies that it was put in at the hospital. I'm carrying it in a little lunch bag my sister gave to Luca. It has robots on it. My mom, sisters, and cousin wait in the boat. We walk towards this little spindly spruce tree that we spotted from the river. It is the tree we want to hang the placenta in. From the water it seemed closer. Now standing on the bank, it seemed kind of far away. The ground is very uneven. There are these big wells hidden below long grass. I step into one and my foot gets soaked from the water collecting at the bottom. It crosses my mind that a moose would have no trouble traversing this riverbank. I struggle while taking a couple unbalanced and cautious steps. I suggest we pick another tree, a closer one. But Michael says it's okay. We can get to the one we want. It's not far. The 3 of us stand beside our little tree. Up close, I can see the details of the lichen collecting on its twiggy branches. So many shades of white and green. It's so quiet. No one is talking in the boat, and Michael and I do not speak as I open the lunch bag to get the placenta. I pull out the plastic bag. Michael opens one of the blades of his Leatherman and hands it to me. The bag is full, squishy, and surprisingly heavy. It was frozen for a year, but now, after 2 days in a cooler, it's definitely thawed. I slice off the knot. Blood pours onto the ground. I hand the knife back to Michael and use the bag in both hands to pour the placenta out over a branch on the tree. Now outside the bag and on the tree, I see the umbilical cord. I'm surprised to see it. For some reason, I was expecting just the placenta. Seeing the umbilical cord brings me right back to the hospital and the moment of Luca's birth. It was a year since I had seen the umbilical cord. Everything that has happened since then comes rushing back to me, overcomes me. A huge wave of emotions, memories, anxieties, fears, and pains. Everything wells up inside me and I sob. I miss my dad. I see the clear river water in front of me. And I long with my entire body that this land will be like this for Luca's life and his children's lives and his children's children's lives. At the same time, I fear it will not be like this for him or even them. I re-feel the loneliness and isolation I felt for a year of Luca's life, and I cry because it's over now and I don't have to feel it anymore. For years, I longed for connection to our homelands. I'd written about it, I'd studied it, I'd been schooled in the language and the theories of the importance of it, but this was the first time that I actually felt it. It's hard to describe what it's like to see a part of my body and Luca's body in a tree beside a river, surrounded by thousands of acres of beautiful, pristine land, mountains, lakes, dense not a sound, just unwavering, silent persistence. Silent presence. I lean into Michael, who wraps his free arm around me. He holds Luca. The land holds us. When I finish crying, I open my eyes and look up. Luca is looking right at me, smiling. I smile back at him. We walk back to the boat. Everyone hugs and holds one another. We begin the slow journey upriver and back to the campground. I nurse Luca along the way, and he falls asleep. I make eye contact with my little sister Lianne, and I tell her how happy I am that she's here with us. She smiles. Michael points out the huge schools of lake trout gliding in the water. I glance back at that spot where Luca and I tethered ourselves to our homelands. I have never felt this grounded in who I am, in who we are, in all my life. The sun is warm. Our wake ripples out behind us towards the shore and downriver. Thank you for letting me read that in the way that I had to read it. It was really important to me to share that with you because I think it's the only way that you can fully understand what this piece means to me and means to the kinds of questions that I'm trying to ask here and the concerns that I have. I had gotten a whole bunch of these land claims maps printed at a Yukon environment. You can buy this land claims package. I got 2 of them, and they're sitting spread all over my basement. And I'd just written this, and I'd shared it with some people, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh my goodness, I wonder how the land has been categorized where I put Luca's placenta. So I went shuffling through them, and I found the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation land claims map. And I traced from the lake down the river about as far as I thought we went. And there on one side is Category A land, and there on the other side is Category B land. Category A, we have the rights to the top and the surface and the subsurface. Category B, we have the rights to the surface, and the mineral rights are held by the state. I learned that I put it on Category B land, which means that everything, that place could potentially be undermined by needs and desires for resource extraction. And to this day, I don't know what to say about that. So I made this. You'll see on the side when we have a chance to have a look, it's red and blue and black, and it's representing sort of creation. And there in the center is the spot. Little Salmon Lake, downriver, you can see the Category A and B land. And the rest of the belt is made out of the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nation land claims map. And I pulled out one line from Together Today for Our Children Tomorrow, and it just says for our children here. And it goes from this red sort of mass and just gets wider and wider and wider. It ends with a single white piece of blank paper. The inside of it is the Placer Mining Act collaged with photographs by Peter Mather of the Faro mine. And it's held together with these things called brass paper fasteners. And tied here is actual real home tan moose hide. I included a pile of gold here, and it was my deepest intention to make that look ridiculous, because I wanted to ask, is that why we do this? Is that all we want? Will we move through all of this in order to just get that? And then a beautiful thing happened when we installed it, with Mary present and Scott and Valerie, and we were reflecting on each other's work and how there's this element of ghosting happening, especially in Doug Starch's work, where there's this presence, but no presence at the same time. And when we had planned the installation, all these really awesome professionals here knew all these different ways that we could make this look really cool. And we came to this present, the way that it's installed here, make it look like it's actually on a human, right? Because you would tie it here around your shoulders and your baby would sit in it, its bum right here. But there's no body there. There's just this ghost of a body, which then for me started raising sort of real questions again, looking back at the arrows and the potential deaths that are taking place with all of this, that made me think about death that would have to take place in order to get that, when this piece is actually about creation. Again, another sort of incrementability. And then just to wrap things up, I'll draw your attention to the moose's eyes. There's this conversation about, someone said to me, is there anything hopeless? Actually, there's a deep hope in this, in the moose's eyes. And the moose's eyes are made of these beautiful glass marbles from the glass blowing studio downtown. And they're meant to depict the clear water that we saw that day, the clear water that's flowing right now out there all over our land. And it's seeing a future where the water is still very clear like that. And built on this comment a friend of mine named Patrick made, when we were talking about all these lines that get drawn everywhere, all these rules on the paper that tell us where we can and cannot go, where our rights remain, where they don't. But a moose none of those lines affect his life. He will move through all of that, over it, across it, multiple times. It's moving all the time, despite all of these ways of categorizing and drawing various lines. So that the process of the fact that he's still alive, that he's moving, and he knows where he's going. He sees a future that he wants, and at the same time, we are seeing with incredible clarity. I wanted to empower us to know that we see exactly what's going on. We can see it like he's